Under the burning Andalusian sun, the wide river of the Guadalquivir shimmered like liquid silver. Its waters had long been a lifeline of civilization, carrying saffron and silk from the east, olive oil and wine from the south, scholars and merchants from every corner of the Muslim world. Villages dotted its banks, their whitewashed walls gleaming under the September sky. Farmers tended to olive groves, and children played along the river's edge, unaware that a storm was coming, not from the clouds above, but from the sea. The year was 444 A.D. Beyond the horizons of Iberia, a people of the far north, fierce, restless, and hardened by endless winters, had carved ships that seemed almost alive. They shaped their prows into snarling dragon heads, painted their sails the color of blood, and trained themselves for a single purpose: raiding. These were the Norsemen, the Vikings. For decades they had terrorized the coasts of Francia, burning villages, desecrating churches, and cutting down armies that had underestimated them. Bordeaux, Rouen, Nantes, all had felt the bite of their steel, yet their hunger for plunder drove them further. Rumors carried by traders spoke of a land beyond the Pyrenees, Al-Andalus, jewel of the West, rich markets overflowing with spices, silks, and gold, cities where mosques rose higher than any wooden hall of the north. To the Vikings, it sounded like a paradise waiting to be pillaged. That September, 60 dragon ships appeared on the horizon. The fishermen of Galicia and the shepherds of Portugal saw their sails first, crimson triangles against the misty dawn. The Arabs of Al-Andalus called them Majus, fire worshippers, for they came from pagan lands. But the truth was simpler. They came as wolves. The fleet struck like lightning. Lisbon, known as Al-Ujbuna, fell in a day. Flames licked its walls, its markets were stripped bare, and its defenders were cut down. Cadiz was next, a coastal jewel reduced to smoldering ruins. Medina Sidonia, once a proud settlement, was left bleeding. Then the dragon ships turned inland, drawn to the greatest prize of all, the city of Ishbilia, Seville. Seville was a marvel of Al-Andalus. Its great mosque stood like a crown jewel. Its bazaars bustled with life. Its riverfront overflowed with goods from Africa and the Mediterranean. Yet in those fateful days, it was vulnerable. Its defenders few, its walls not strong enough to withstand what approached. As the longships slid silently up the Guadalquivir, farmers fled their fields, traders abandoned their caravans. Word spread in whispers, "The Majus are coming." By the end of September, the dragons had reached the very heart of Al-Andalus. On the morning of October 1st, 844 A.D., the Vikings attacked Seville. The city woke not to the call of prayer, but to the thunder of axes against its gates. Governor Isa ibn Shuhaid, a man of duty and resolve, rallied what men he could. His cry echoed through the narrow streets. "Men of Andalus, defend your homes, protect the masjid, do not let the unbelievers defile your city." But the Norse moved like a flood, their round shields locked tight, deflecting arrows and spears. Their axes swung with savage strength, splintering doors, cutting down defenders. By nightfall, the city was engulfed in fire. For 7 days Seville suffered.
Its markets, once filled with saffron, figs, and honey, were looted. Granaries that had fed thousands were set ablaze. Families wept as women and children were taken captive, dragged in chains toward the longships. The smoke of burning homes blackened the skies, and the cries of the wounded mingled with the clash of steel. Yet amidst the destruction, one place stood as a beacon of defiance: the great mosque of Seville. Here a small band of believers, fueled by their faith, fought with desperate courage. They held the sacred ground with their lives, arrows flying from its roof, swords flashing in its courtyards. Though the city around them fell, the masjid endured, a symbol that Seville was wounded, but not entirely lost. News of the catastrophe traveled quickly. Couriers rode day and night until they reached the glittering capital of Al-Andalus, Cordoba. The news struck like a spear through the heart of the emirate.
Cordoba in the 9th century was the pride of the Muslim West. Its palaces glowed with marble, its libraries overflowed with knowledge, and its mosques echoed with Quranic recitation. When word of Seville's fall reached the court of Emir Al-Rahman II, the city fell into mourning and fury. The emir was not merely a ruler of wealth and learning, he was the guardian of Al-Andalus. Hearing that one of his crown jewels had been desecrated by pagans, he rose with a voice that thundered through his halls. "Seville has fallen, but Al-Andalus shall not bend. Send for Muhammad ibn Rustam. Let the river that carried them in become their grave." Muhammad ibn Rustam was no ordinary commander. Seasoned in war, skilled at sea, he was trusted with the task of vengeance. Within days, troops were mobilized, cavalry with polished mail, their curved swords glinting in the sun, infantry with shields bearing the crescent, warships prepared in the docks, ready to pursue the invaders. The people of Cordoba poured into the streets to watch the army depart. Mothers wept but prayed, children cheered, scholars recited verses of courage. The army marched south, each step filled with fire, not just anger for the past, but determination for the future. And so Al-Andalus answered the call. Mid-October, 844 A.D., the Vikings, their ships heavy with plunder and captives, began to retreat. They steered their longships down the Guadalquivir, confident that their raid was complete. But Muhammad ibn Rustam waited. On the marshy banks, the Muslim fleet appeared like shadows on the horizon. Their prows cut the water with precision. Archers stood ready, their quivers filled. Warriors gripped their swords, hearts steady. The command rang out, "Attack!" The battle that followed shook the river. Arrows rained like a storm, clattering against Viking shields. Ships crashed against one another, wood splintering under the strain. The clash of steel rang across the waters. The Norse fought with ferocity, their axes dripping with blood, their voices raised in war cries. But the Muslims pressed harder, disciplined and relentless. One by one the dragon ships fell. Flames consumed their sails. Smoke blackened the sky. Screams echoed as men fell into the river, dragged under by the current. By sunset, the Vikings were broken. 500 lay dead upon the water and the banks. 30 longships were destroyed, swallowed by fire and waves. Nearly 400 survivors, battered and defeated, were bound in chains. Before the clash, Ibn Rustam had declared, "They crossed our waters with fire. We will drown them with steel." His words became prophecy. The captives were marched to Cordoba, paraded under the scorching Andalusian sun. The people lined the streets, astonished to see the once feared Norse warriors humbled in chains. Emir Abd al-Rahman II delivered his decree. Their fate would be a warning to all who dared threaten Al-Andalus. But vengeance was not the only fruit of the battle. From tragedy came transformation. The Emir ordered the construction of a navy, the first true Andalusian fleet, built not just for commerce, but for defense. Coastal fortresses rose where once there had been only open sands. Watchtowers were erected, guarding every port and river mouth with vigilance. And Seville, though scarred, rose from the ashes. Its mosque was restored, its markets rebuilt, its people returned, stronger than before. The city that had burned now stood fortified, defiant, and proud. The clash of 844 AD was more than a raid. It was a message etched into history. Al-Andalus was no land to be taken lightly. The Vikings had come as dragons, but they left as ash. And so, the meeting of the North and the South, the pagans and the Muslims, was recorded not in parchment alone, but in rivers of blood, towers of stone, and the unbroken resolve of a people who refused to bow.